What if everything we've been taught about history is incomplete? Picture a vault somewhere, filled with artifacts and documents that could shatter our understanding of the past, objects so revolutionary they've been deliberately hidden from the world. For centuries, governments, institutions, and powerful individuals have guarded these secrets, locking away discoveries that challenge official narratives or threaten the status quo. But why? What could be so dangerous about the truth? Think about the last time you stumbled upon a piece of history that made you question everything: a cryptic artifact, an unexplained ruin, or a declassified document that hinted at something much bigger. Now imagine that feeling multiplied 1,000-fold, because the most explosive discoveries aren't in museums or textbooks. They're buried in classified archives, sealed in remote locations, or whispered about in circles sworn to secrecy. From ancient technologies that defy explanation to lost civilizations that predate recorded time, these aren't just gaps in our knowledge, they're deliberate omissions. And the reasons behind the cover-ups are as fascinating as the secrets themselves. This isn't just about conspiracy theories or wild speculation. It's about the very real possibility that history, as we know it, is a carefully curated story, one with entire chapters ripped out. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the most jaw-dropping historical discoveries still kept under wraps. We'll explore why they remain hidden, who benefits from their suppression, and what they might reveal about humanity's true origins. So buckle up. By the end of this journey, you'll never look at the past the same way again. Deep beneath the Vatican's hallowed halls lies a labyrinth of knowledge so vast it could rewrite history itself. The Vatican Secret Archives aren't just a collection of old papers, they're a time capsule, preserving 12 centuries of letters, treaties, and manuscripts, many of which have never seen the light of day. Officially, only accredited scholars and clergy can request access, and even then, less than 1% of the archive's 85 kilometers of shelves are open to the public. So what's hidden in the other 99%? Rumors swirl about apocryphal gospels, alternative accounts of Jesus' life deemed too controversial for the Bible. Texts like the Gospel of Thomas, which suggests spiritual enlightenment comes from within, not through institutions, or the Gospel of Judas, portraying Judas not as a traitor, but as a tragic figure carrying out divine will. If these writings were widely known, could they shake the foundations of faith? Then there's the case of Pope Innocent III's correspondence about the Albigensian Crusade, where entire towns were wiped out in the name of orthodoxy. What other dark chapters of religious history are still locked away? But it's not just about faith. The archives allegedly contain groundbreaking scientific work suppressed during the Renaissance. Take the trial documents of Galileo. What if they hold clues to theories even more radical than heliocentrism? Some researchers whisper about Leonardo da Vinci's lost notebooks, confiscated by the church over fears his inventions could destabilize societal power structures. And then there's the most tantalizing rumor of all: reports from missionaries in the Americas describing encounters with beings not of this world. Could the Vatican be sitting on evidence that redefines humanity's place in the cosmos? The irony is striking. An institution built on spreading truth simultaneously guards secrets that could upend it. Whether protecting faith, power, or something beyond our current understanding, the archives remind us that history isn't just written by the victors, it's also hidden by them. And until those doors swing wide open, we're left piecing together a puzzle with most of its pieces kept just out of reach. The flames that consumed the Library of Alexandria didn't just erase books, they may have obliterated entire dimensions of human understanding. While history pins its destruction on Julius Caesar's siege in 48 BCE, the truth is far more complex. Fires, riots, and deliberate purges chipped away at its collections over centuries, leaving us to wonder, what if the most valuable scrolls weren't lost but smuggled to safety? Whispers among historians suggest that guardians of knowledge, foreseeing the library's fate, spirited away its rarest texts to hidden sanctuaries. Imagine the implications if these works, brimming with forgotten mathematics, astronomy, and medicine, were to resurface today. Take the case of Archimedes' lost treatise on steam-powered mechanics. Ancient accounts describe his designs for devices that could have jump-started an industrial revolution 2,000 years early. What other engineering marvels were documented in those ashes? Even more tantalizing are rumors of texts from the mythical Hall of Records, an alleged repository beneath the Great Sphinx containing advanced knowledge of a pre-flood civilization. Could these scrolls have held blueprints for technologies we're only now rediscovering, like geodesic architecture or renewable energy systems? Then there's the philosophical fallout. The library housed radical schools of thought challenging Aristotle's dominance, ideas about democracy, equality, and cosmic consciousness that threatened ruling powers. A surviving fragment from the poet Callimachus reveals the library's catalogue alone spanned 120 scrolls, mapping a web of knowledge we've barely glimpsed. If even a fraction of these survived in secret, our entire narrative of human progress might need rewriting. The real tragedy isn't just what burned, it's what we never knew existed in the first place. The Antikythera Mechanism isn't just an artifact, it's a time capsule from a civilization far more sophisticated than we ever imagined. Pulled from a shipwreck off the coast of Greece in 1901, this intricate bronze device, dating back over 2,000 years, still baffles scientists today. Gears interlock with precision, tracking celestial movements with an accuracy that shouldn't have existed until the Renaissance. But here's the real mystery. If this was just one device on one ship, what else might have been lost to history? Consider the craftsmanship. The mechanism's gears mimic the orbits of planets, predicting eclipses and even accounting for irregularities in the moon's motion. This wasn't just a tool for sailors, it was a masterpiece of engineering, suggesting a level of astronomical knowledge that clashes with our timeline of human progress. Some researchers argue it was a teaching aid, while others believe it was part of a network of devices, perhaps used in temples or by scholars. But what if it was something even more extraordinary? Ancient texts hint at other celestial machines, like Archimedes' legendary sphere that modeled the heavens. Could the Antikythera Mechanism be a surviving fragment of a much larger technological tradition? Then there's the question of its origins. The ship carrying it was Roman, but the mechanism itself is unmistakably Greek. Historians speculate it was looted from a workshop or academy, destined for some powerful collector. But here's the chilling thought. If this device was valuable enough to transport across the Mediterranean, how many others like it were destroyed or hidden? The writings of Cicero describe a similar device built by Archimedes, taken as war booty to Rome only to vanish without a trace. Were these machines more common than we realize, their secrets lost in the chaos of wars and empire collapses? The most tantalizing possibility that the Antikythera Mechanism represents a glimpse into a parallel path of scientific development, one that was interrupted, suppressed, or simply forgotten. Imagine a world where this technology wasn't an anomaly but the norm. What might ancient civilizations have achieved if their knowledge had been preserved? Until we uncover more artifacts like it, we're left staring at this intricate puzzle, wondering how many pieces are still missing and who might be keeping them out of sight. The Baghdad Battery sits quietly in museum displays, labeled as a curiosity, but what if it's the key to unlocking a forgotten chapter of human innovation? Discovered in 1936 near present-day Iraq, this unassuming clay jar, roughly 2,000 years old, contains a copper cylinder and an iron rod, eerily resembling the basic components of an electrochemical cell. When filled with an acidic liquid like vinegar or wine, experiments show it could generate a small electric current. Mainstream archaeology brushes it off as a fluke, perhaps a storage vessel for sacred scrolls or perfumes. But the unsettling question remains: why would ancient artisans craft something with such precise conductive properties, if not for a purpose we've yet to understand? Look beyond the single artifact and the puzzle deepens. Ancient Egyptian reliefs show figures holding what appear to be elongated bulbs, connected by cables to box-like objects. Could these be crude depictions of lighting systems? The Dendera light, as it's called, is dismissed as symbolic imagery of snakes or lotus flowers. Yet similar carvings in India's Temple of Edfu describe divine flames requiring insulation and precise assembly. Even more compelling are the accounts of Roman naturalist Pliny the Elder, who wrote of gold refiners using mysterious vessels to purify metals, a process that, intriguingly, aligns with electrolysis. These scattered clues suggest a pattern, not isolated accidents but fragments of a lost technological tradition. So where's the rest of the evidence? Some researchers argue that early electrical knowledge was deliberately suppressed or destroyed. The Library of Alexandria's incineration wasn't just a loss of scrolls, it may have erased manuals on energy manipulation. Others speculate that artifacts like the Baghdad Battery were confiscated or hidden by later empires to maintain dominance over emerging technologies. Private collectors and secretive institutions could be sitting on troves of similar devices, their significance downplayed or labeled as ceremonial to avoid rewriting history. Imagine the implications if these theories hold weight. A civilization mastering basic electricity 2 millennia before Galvani and Volta would force us to reconsider everything from ancient construction techniques to the origins of scientific thought. The Great Pyramid's precision, for instance, might not hinge on brute labor alone but on tools powered by energy we've refused to acknowledge. The Baghdad Battery isn't just an oddity, it's a whisper from the past, daring us to question the timeline we've been taught. And until more of these whispers are heard, our understanding of history remains incomplete by design. The Voynich Manuscript doesn't just defy translation, it mocks the very idea of being understood. This mysterious book, carbon dated to the early 15th century, is filled with looping, alien script and bizarre illustrations of plants that don't exist, celestial charts with unknown constellations, and nude women bathing in what looks like a network of interconnected green tubes. For over 100 years, cryptographers, linguists, and even wartime codebreakers have thrown themselves at its pages, only to walk away empty-handed. But here's what's truly unsettling. If this manuscript is a hoax, why does its structure follow such precise linguistic patterns? And if it's genuine, what kind of knowledge was so dangerous it had to be locked behind an unbreakable cipher? Take the botanical section, the most infamous part of the manuscript. At first glance, the plants seem fantastical, with roots like tentacles and leaves that spiral in impossible ways. Yet in 1921, a botanist noticed something eerie. Some of these imaginary plants bore uncanny resemblances to species from the Americas, like sunflowers and peppers, plants Europeans shouldn't have known about until Columbus's voyages decades later. Could the manuscript's author have had access to transatlantic knowledge centuries before recorded contact? Even stranger are the astrological diagrams, where zodiac symbols float alongside clusters of stars that don't match any known medieval celestial maps. Some researchers suggest these aren't stars at all, but microscopic diagrams, as if someone was documenting cellular structures long before the invention of the microscope. Then there's the code itself. Statistical analysis shows the manuscript's language follows patterns found in real human languages, with word frequencies and sentence structures too consistent to be random gibberish. But here's the twist: no known cipher from that era, not Caesar shifts, not symbol substitution, has cracked even a single page. The most advanced algorithms, including our eye trained on hundreds of languages, hit the same wall. This isn't just a puzzle missing its key, it's a lock designed to resist picking. Who would go to such lengths to hide knowledge? One theory points to the manuscript's possible ties to the Habsburg court, where alchemists and occultists experimented with forbidden ideas under royal protection. Another suggests it's the work of a secretive guild, perhaps early chemists who encoded formulas for medicines or poisons too valuable to share. But the most spine-tingling possibility: that the manuscript isn't meant to be read at all. Some medieval traditions held that certain truths were too dangerous to be written plainly, so they were buried in layers of misdirection, meant only for initiates who already knew how to interpret them. If that's the case, the Voynich Manuscript might not be a book waiting to be decoded. It could be a test, separating those worthy of its secrets from those who'll never grasp them. For now, it sits in Yale University's Voynich Library, silently challenging every visitor. Whether it holds lost science, encrypted heresy, or something beyond our current comprehension, one thing is clear: some doors stay locked not because we've lost the key, but because someone decided they should never be opened. The Dead Sea Scrolls are often hailed as the greatest archaeological discovery of the 20th century, but what if we've only been given half the story? Found in the caves of Qumran between 1947 and 1956, these ancient texts include some of the oldest known copies of the Hebrew Bible, along with hymns, community rules, and apocalyptic visions. Yet decades after their discovery, scholars estimate less than 70% of the fragments have been fully published, the rest locked away in academic vaults, accessible only to a select few. So what's in those unpublished scrolls that's too sensitive for public eyes? Whispers among researchers suggest some fragments contain radical reinterpretations of biblical figures, alternative accounts of Moses, Enoch, and even Abraham that clash with orthodox traditions. One rumored text, referred to only by its catalog number, allegedly describes angels teaching humans forbidden arts like astrology and weapon-making, echoing the controversial Book of Enoch. Another fragment might reference a messianic figure predating Jesus, complete with miracles and resurrection claims. If proven authentic, such texts could rewrite the origins of Christian theology, revealing it as part of a much older messianic tradition. Then there's the political dynamite. A handful of scrolls still under wraps reportedly name prominent Jewish leaders collaborating with Roman occupiers, a revelation that could upend modern perceptions of ancient power struggles. Even more explosive are claims that some scrolls reference a lost temple tradition, challenging the legitimacy of later religious authorities. No wonder institutions might hesitate. These aren't just historical curiosities. They're theological landmines, but the secrecy goes deeper. In 1991, a team bypassed official channels to reconstruct unpublished texts using a concordance, a kind of ancient index, and found startling gaps. Passages about divine visions and celestial battles were conspicuously absent from published editions. Were they censored to avoid fueling mystical movements? Or is there something in those crumbling lines that even scholars fear to confront? The Dead Sea Scrolls were meant to endure, hidden in jars to survive the ages. Yet today, their most provocative secrets remain buried not by sand but by silence. And until every fragment sees the light, we're left to wonder how much of history's spiritual legacy is still being kept from us. Beneath the great Sphinx's weathered paws lies a mystery that could rewrite everything we know about ancient Egypt. Ground-penetrating radar and seismic surveys have revealed anomalies, hollow spaces, tunnels, even what appear to be man-made chambers hidden deep beneath the monument. But here's what's puzzling. Despite decades of confirmed discoveries, full-scale excavations have been repeatedly blocked or downplayed. Why would authorities resist uncovering what could be the most significant archaeological find of the century? Take the 1991 survey by a team from Florida State University. Their equipment detected a rectangular chamber nearly 30 feet beneath the Sphinx's hindquarters, along with a network of tunnels snaking toward the nearby pyramids. Similar findings in 2009 by Japanese researchers showed even larger cavities, some aligned with celestial patterns. Yet every attempt to dig deeper has been met with bureaucratic delays or sudden changes in leadership at Egypt's Antiquities Ministry. Some speculate it's about preserving the site, but others point to something more provocative. What if these chambers hold records from a civilization predating dynastic Egypt, texts or artifacts confirming Plato's account of Atlantis, or evidence of advanced technology lost to time? Theories about the Sphinx's age only deepen the intrigue. Mainstream Egyptology dates it to Pharaoh Khafre's reign around 2500 BCE, but geological erosion patterns suggest it might be thousands of years older. Boston University geologist Robert Skock's analysis points to water weathering, hinting at a time when the Giza Plateau saw heavy rainfall, possibly as far back as 10,000 BCE. If true, the Sphinx could be a relic of a forgotten epoch, its underground chambers preserving knowledge from before the last ice age. Then there's the legend of the Hall of Records, a mythical archive said to lie beneath the Sphinx, first mentioned in ancient texts like the Westcar Papyrus. Edgar Cayce, the famed 20th century psychic, claimed it held the wisdom of a lost civilization, including blueprints for energy systems we've yet to rediscover. While skeptics dismiss this as fantasy, it's worth noting that the Egyptian government has quietly funded robotic probes to explore the chambers, only to classify the results. The real question isn't just what's down there, but who decides when, or if we'll ever see it, with tourism accounting for over 10% of Egypt's economy. Revealing a discovery that upends conventional history could destabilize the very narrative that draws millions to the pyramids each year. Or perhaps the truth is even more unsettling, that some knowledge once uncovered can't be taken back. Until those tunnels are fully explored, the Sphinx keeps its secrets, leaving us to wonder what lies in the darkness beneath its gaze. Oak Island's so-called money pit isn't just a hole in the ground. It's a riddle wrapped in layers of booby traps and centuries of failed expeditions. Since the late 1700s, when teenagers first stumbled upon a mysterious depression lined with flagstones and logs, treasure hunters have poured fortunes into uncovering its secrets. But here's what's strange. Every time someone gets close, the pit fights back. Flood tunnels fill with seawater, ancient cribbing collapses, and machinery mysteriously fails. This isn't just bad luck, it's as if the pit was designed to keep something hidden at all costs. So what could be worth such an elaborate defense system? The usual theories point to pirate gold, with names like Captain Kidd or Blackbeard tossed around. But dig deeper and the story gets far more intriguing. 18th century accounts describe workers uncovering parchment fragments. Could these be remnants of Shakespeare's lost manuscripts smuggled out of England? Or even more explosive, drafts of Francis Bacon's secret writings, rumored to challenge royal and religious authority. Then there's the theory linking the pit to the Knights Templar. Artifacts like a 17th century Spanish coin and a carved stone with cryptic symbols fuel speculation that the island was a safe house for relics smuggled out of Europe during the Templars' persecution. Imagine if the pit holds not just gold, but a lost archive of pre-Reformation Christian texts, ones that could rewrite the Church's early history. Yet the obstacles keep mounting. Modern teams using sonar and drills have hit metal vaults and underground chambers, only to have funding dry up or permits vanish. In 2014, a reality TV crew claimed to find a 16th century Spanish cross, but mainstream archaeologists dismissed it as a plant. Skeptics argue the whole thing's an elaborate hoax, but that doesn't explain the sheer complexity of the engineering. The original shaft descends over 100 feet, with layers of oak platforms, coconut fiber, and clay materials sourced from thousands of miles away. Who would go to such lengths for a prank? The most chilling possibility that the pit's true purpose was never to safeguard treasure, but to bury knowledge too dangerous to exist. Medieval alchemists and secret societies often encoded their work, hiding it in plain sight until the world was ready. If Oak Island's tunnels hold blueprints for forgotten technologies or heretical philosophies, it would explain why they are so fiercely protected not by curses but by design. Until someone breaches its final chamber, the money pit remains a locked door at the bottom of the ocean, guarding secrets we can only guess at. The crystal skulls aren't just museum curiosities, they're fragments of a puzzle that defies every conventional explanation. Carved from single blocks of quartz and amethyst with near-impossible precision, these artifacts surfaced in the late 19th century, often attributed to lost Mesoamerican civilizations like the Aztecs or Maya. But here's the catch. Not a single skull has ever been excavated under documented archaeological conditions. Instead, they appear mysteriously in private collections, their origins shrouded in hearsay and conflicting provenance. Why would objects of such apparent cultural significance vanish into the hands of collectors rather than universities or museums? Take the most famous example, the Mitchell-Hedges skull, named after the adventurer who claimed his daughter discovered it in Belize in the 1920s. Its surface is polished to a degree that seems impossible without modern tools, with no visible tool marks, a feat even today's master lapidaries struggle to replicate. Then there's the Paris skull, housed in the Musée du Quai Branly, which exhibits striations consistent with high-speed rotary tools technology supposedly non-existent in pre-Columbian societies. Scientists who have examined these objects can't agree on their age. Some tests suggest 19th century origins, while others hint at much older, undocumented fabrication methods. But the real intrigue lies in the legends. Indigenous oral traditions speak of the skulls as repositories of ancestral knowledge, capable of healing or visions when activated under certain conditions. Modern metaphysicians claim they emit electromagnetic fields or even store holographic data, theories dismissed by mainstream science, yet persistently echoed in fringe research. Whether myth or misunderstood technology, the skull's alleged properties raise a disturbing question. If they're merely hoaxes, why have so many been seized by governments or quietly purchased by wealthy elites? In 1943, the FBI reportedly confiscated a crystal skull from a New York antique dealer, citing national security concerns. What could a carved quartz object possibly threaten? The most plausible answer might also be the most unsettling, that the skulls represent a tradition of knowledge so advanced or unorthodox, it was systematically suppressed. Consider the parallels between their rumored capabilities and modern attempts at optical data storage, using crystals to preserve information for millennia. Ancient texts like the Hindu Vedas describe memory stones used by sages to archive wisdom. Could the skulls be physical remnants of a similar tradition? Until more of them are subjected to unrestricted study, we're left with a paradox: artifacts too enigmatic to explain, yet too controversial to fully investigate. Their secrets remain locked away, not in underground chambers, but in the vaults of those who have decided some truths aren't ours to know. The Nazi bell, codenamed Die Glock, isn't just another wartime myth. Whispers of this mysterious device first surfaced in the shadows of World War II, described by Polish journalist Igor Witkowski, and later popularized by military researcher Nick Cook. Shaped like a massive bell and allegedly constructed from an unfamiliar metallic alloy, it was said to hum with an otherworldly resonance when activated. Witnesses claimed it emitted a strange, bluish glow, and those who worked on the project reportedly suffered gruesome side effects: blood coagulation, nervous system failure, even crystallization of bodily fluids. But here's the chilling part. Classified documents recovered from SS officer Jakob Sporenberg's post-war interrogation mention the bell by name, linking it to something called the Laternentrega Project, a series of experiments so secretive even high-ranking Nazis were kept in the dark. What could this device have been? Theories range from the plausible to the extraordinary. Some researchers suggest it was an early attempt at anti-gravity propulsion, fueled by a radioactive substance called Zerum 525, a liquid metal stored in lead-lined cylinders. Others believe it manipulated space-time itself, creating localized distortions that could bend the fabric of reality. Declassified OSS files reference Nazi scientists working on vortex compression technology, while Soviet intelligence reports mention a bunker in Lower Silesia where the bell was tested, a site littered with charred vegetation and animals whose bodies showed signs of rapid aging. The real mystery isn't just what the bell did, but where it ended up. After the war, key scientists like Kurt Debus and Wern von Braun were quietly smuggled to the US under Operation Paperclip, their research absorbed into classified aerospace projects. Yet no one has ever admitted to recovering the bell itself. Was it destroyed, hidden in a South American jungle, as some conspiracy theorists claim? Or worse, did it work too well, becoming something governments dared not replicate or reveal? The silence surrounding Die Glock speaks volumes. In a world where nuclear secrets were stolen, rocketry was reverse engineered, and medical atrocities were documented, why does this one project remain so fiercely guarded? Perhaps the answer lies not in the technology itself, but in what it implies: that the Nazis, in their desperation, stumbled onto a discovery far beyond their control, one we're still not ready to confront. Until those last redacted files are opened, the bell's secrets will keep ringing in the dark, a haunting echo of science pushed beyond its limits. The Tartaria tablets don't just challenge history, they shatter it. Discovered in 1961 in Romania, these small clay objects, etched with strange symbols, date back over 7,000 years, predating Mesopotamian cuneiform by nearly 2 millennia. If authentic, they'd rewrite the entire timeline of human writing, proving that an advanced culture flourished in Europe long before Sumer or Egypt. Yet most textbooks ignore them, dismissing the tablets as ritual objects or outright forgeries. But here's what's curious: the symbols aren't random scratches. They form deliberate groupings, arranged in lines like a primitive script, one that eerily resembles later writing systems from the Mediterranean. Could these markings be the missing link in the evolution of language? Mainstream archaeology's skepticism hinges on one glaring question: why haven't more tablets surfaced? Critics argue that a civilization sophisticated enough to develop writing would have left behind more than a handful of fragments, Yet dig deeper and the plot thickens. The tablets were found alongside charred bones and ritual artifacts, suggesting they weren't everyday records but sacred objects perhaps intentionally destroyed or hidden. Even more intriguing, similar symbols appear on pottery fragments across the Balkans, hinting at a broader cultural network. What if the Tartaria tablets aren't anomalies but survivors of a purged tradition? The silence around these artifacts is deafening. When linguist Marija Gimbutas proposed that the symbols represented a proto-writing system tied to old Europe's matriarchal societies, her work was sidelined as speculative. Meanwhile, private collectors reportedly hoard similar tablets, their origins murky and their authenticity untested. One theory suggests these objects encode astronomical knowledge, their symbols aligning with solstice markers found in nearby Neolithic temples. Another posits they were part of a secretive priestly language meant to communicate with deities or ancestors. The real mystery isn't just what the tablets say, but why their potential terrifies the academic establishment. Admitting their legitimacy would upend the dogma that civilization began in the Near East, forcing us to confront a radical idea that multiple cultures independently unlock the power of writing, only for some to be erased from history. Until more of these artifacts emerge from the shadows, the Tartaria tablets remain a whisper from a forgotten world, one that dared to write its story in clay, only to have it buried by time and skepticism. The Piri Reis map doesn't just defy expectations, it obliterates them. Drawn in 1513 by the Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis, this fragment of a larger world chart shows coastlines with impossible accuracy, including the most baffling detail of all, the outline of Antarctica, a continent that wouldn't be officially discovered for another 300 years. But here's the twist. The map depicts Antarctica not as it appears today, buried under miles of ice, but as it might have looked thousands of years ago when its shores were free of glaciers. How could a 16th century navigator have known about a landmass hidden beneath centuries of frost? The answer might lie in the map's own marginal notes, where Reis admits he didn't create it from scratch. He copied it from older sources, some dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. The implications are staggering. If Reis's sources were accurate, they suggest that ancient civilizations possessed knowledge of the entire globe, including landmasses we've only recently explored. Some researchers point to the Library of Alexandria, where scholars like Eratosthenes calculated the Earth's circumference with remarkable precision. Could its lost scrolls have contained world maps far more advanced than we've assumed? Others speculate about seafaring cultures like the Minoans or Phoenicians, whose voyages might have taken them farther than history records. Then there's the most tantalizing theory of all, that the original maps Reis referenced weren't human-made at all, but inherited from a pre-Ice Age civilization, one that witnessed Antarctica's ice-free coasts firsthand. Modern analysis only deepens the mystery. When the map was compared to seismic surveys of Antarctica's subglacial topography, the match was unsettlingly close. The contours of Queen Maud Land align with Reis's depiction, down to river valleys now entombed under millennia of ice. Skeptics argue it's coincidence, or that Reis simply guessed correctly. But that doesn't explain how he nailed details like the Falkland Islands, which weren't officially charted until the 18th century. Even more perplexing is the map's grid system, which uses a spherical trigonometry so advanced, historians once believed it wasn't developed until the 20th century. So where are these ancient source maps today? Some scholars suspect they're hidden in the vaults of the Topkapi Palace, where Reis served as a naval commander. Others believe they were destroyed during the Ottoman Empire's decline, or worse, confiscated by European powers during the Age of Exploration, locked away to suppress knowledge that could rewrite history. The truth might never surface, but the Piri Reis map stands as a haunting reminder. Our understanding of the past is a patchwork stitched together from fragments, and some of those fragments are still missing. Göbekli Tepe isn't just an archaeological site. It's a time bomb buried in the Turkish soil, silently ticking away at the foundations of human history. Unearthed in the 1990s, this sprawling complex of massive stone pillars arranged in circular formations dates back 12,000 years, making it 6 millennia older than Stonehenge and 7,000 years older than the Great Pyramids. But here's what's truly unsettling. This wasn't built by a fledgling society struggling to farm or domesticate animals. It was crafted by hunter-gatherers, people we've always assumed were too preoccupied with survival to engineer monumental architecture. How did they do it, and more importantly, why? The precision of the carvings tells a story mainstream archaeology can't easily explain. Each T-shaped pillar weighs up to 20 tons, some hauled from quarries hundreds of feet away. The surfaces are adorned with intricate reliefs of animals, scorpions, foxes, and lions, so detailed they rival later Mesopotamian art. Yet there's no evidence of nearby settlements, no trash heaps or homes. This wasn't a village, it was a ceremonial hub, a sacred space built by a culture we've barely begun to understand. Even more baffling is what researchers found beneath the site. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed at least 20 additional rings still buried, hinting at a complex far larger than what's been uncovered. But excavation permits for these areas are mysteriously hard to come by. Rumors swirl about what might lie hidden in those untouched layers. Independent researchers claim seismic scans suggest even older structures beneath the known ruins, possibly dating back 14,000 years, a time when conventional wisdom says humans were nomadic and primitive. Could these deeper layers hold evidence of a lost advanced society? The Turkish government's tight control over the site only fuels speculation. In 2018, a team using non-invasive technology reported anomalies consistent with man-made chambers, but further investigation was abruptly halted. Official statements cite preservation concerns, but skeptics point to another possibility, that revealing the full scope of Göbekli Tepe would force a rewrite of history so radical. It challenges not just academic timelines, but cultural and religious narratives. Then there's the celestial connection. Many of the pillars align with constellations as they would have appeared 11,000 years ago, suggesting sophisticated astronomical knowledge. One pillar, dubbed the Vulture Stone, bears carvings that some interpret as a record of a catastrophic comet impact around 10900 BCE, an event that coincides with the Younger Dryas period, a time of abrupt climate change and mass extinctions. If true, it would mean Göbekli Tepe's builders weren't just artists or priests. They were astronomers and historians, preserving warnings across millennia. So why the secrecy? Imagine the implications if this site proves that civilization, true, organized, technologically capable society, is far older than we've been taught. It would mean that agriculture, architecture, and even written language might have been invented, lost, and reinvented multiple times over. The guardians of history, whether governments or academic institutions, have a vested interest in maintaining the established narrative. Göbekli Tepe doesn't just add a chapter to our past, it threatens to tear up the entire book. And until those hidden chambers are opened, we're left staring at these towering stones, wondering what other truths lie buried beneath them. Nikola Tesla's laboratory wasn't just a workspace, it was a vault of revolutions that never saw the light of day. When the eccentric genius died alone in a New York hotel room in 1943, the FBI swooped in within hours, seizing truckloads of documents, prototypes, and even the contents of his safe. Officially, it was a matter of national security, given Tesla's work on radar and radio wave technology. But the sheer volume of classified material, over 80 trunks worth, hints at something far more explosive. What exactly were they so desperate to keep hidden? Take Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower, his ambitious project to transmit free, wireless electricity across the globe. The tower was dismantled in 1917 under mysterious circumstances, with financiers like J.P. Morgan abruptly withdrawing support. Mainstream history chalks it up to financial impracticality, but Tesla's notes tell a different story. He believed energy could be pulled from the Earth's own magnetic field, a concept that, if realized, would have dismantled the entire fossil fuel economy overnight. Even more provocative are the rumors of his later work on Teleforce, a particle beam weapon he claimed could vaporize aircraft from hundreds of miles away. The Pentagon later admitted researching similar technology under Reagan's Star Wars initiative, raising the eerie question: did they crack Tesla's code or simply steal it? Then there's the matter of his missing notebooks. After his death, Tesla's nephew fought for years to reclaim his uncle's archives, only to be granted access to heavily redacted files. Key pages on high-frequency vibrations and resonant energy transfer were conspicuously absent. Some researchers believe these contained blueprints for electrogravitics, a theoretical system to neutralize gravity's pull technology that, if harnessed, could render modern aerospace obsolete. The strangest twist: in 1956, a delegation of Soviet scientists reportedly obtained fragments of Tesla's research through undisclosed channels, leading to a sudden leap in their own energy programs. Coincidence or evidence of a suppressed legacy? The most chilling possibility isn't just that Tesla's inventions were confiscated, it's that they worked too well. Imagine a world where energy was free, where weapons could end wars before they began, where transportation defied gravity. Such breakthroughs wouldn't just disrupt industries, they'd upend global power structures. No wonder his full archives remain under lock and key, their contents doled out in carefully curated snippets. Until those files are fully declassified, we're left with the haunting words Tesla himself scribbled in his final days: the present is theirs. The future for which I really worked is mine, a future we've yet to see. The Phaistos disk sits in a museum in Crete, its secrets locked behind spirals of symbols that have baffled scholars for over a century. Discovered in 1908 in the ruins of a Minoan palace, this clay disk, roughly the size of a dinner plate, bears 241 mysterious impressions, figures of men, animals, tools, and plants arranged in a tight spiral. No other artifact like it has ever been found, and that's the first clue something extraordinary is at play. If this was just a prayer or a shopping list, why hasn't a single matching inscription turned up anywhere else in the Mediterranean? What makes the disk truly enigmatic is the method of its creation. Each symbol was stamped into the clay using individual seals, like primitive typeface centuries before movable type was supposedly invented. This wasn't carved by hand, it was mass-produced, hinting at a system of communication far more sophisticated than we've credited to the Minoans. Some researchers argue the symbols represent syllables, forming an early form of writing. Others see them as a cryptographic code, perhaps used by priests or merchants to safeguard secrets. But here's the strangest part: despite countless attempts, no one's cracked it. Not linguists, not mathematicians, not even wartime codebreakers who deciphered Nazi Enigma messages. The disk resists every known method of analysis, as if its creators designed it to be unreadable to outsiders. So why hasn't a major institution thrown its weight behind solving this puzzle? The answer might lie in the disk's potential to upend history. If its symbols prove to be a unique script, it would mean the Minoans developed a writing system entirely independent of Egyptian hieroglyphs or Mesopotamian cuneiform, a revelation that would force us to reconsider the very origins of literacy. Even more provocative is the theory that the disk isn't Minoan at all. Some symbols resemble those found in ancient Anatolia or the Indus Valley, suggesting a cultural exchange far broader than historians have acknowledged. Could the disk be a relic of a lost trade network, one that connected civilizations we never realized were in contact? The silence from academia speaks volumes. Without more artifacts to compare it to, the disk remains an outlier, an inconvenience to the tidy timelines of ancient history, but perhaps that's exactly why it's been sidelined. Admitting we can't decipher it is one thing. Admitting it might rewrite the story of human progress is another. Until someone dares to challenge the status quo, the Phaistos disk will keep its secrets, whispering to us from behind glass, a message waiting for the right mind to finally listen. The Great Pyramid of Giza has guarded its secrets for over 4,500 years, but modern technology is finally peeling back layers of stone to reveal what lies hidden within its ancient walls. In 2017, a team of scientists using muon tomography, a cutting-edge imaging technique that tracks cosmic rays, discovered a massive, previously unknown void above the Grand Gallery, stretching nearly 100 feet long. Dubbed the Big Void, this hidden chamber defies all conventional explanations. It's not a structural necessity, nor does it align with known burial traditions. So what purpose did it serve, and why has the Egyptian government been so hesitant to allow physical exploration? One theory points to the pyramid's precise astronomical alignments. The Big Void sits directly beneath the pyramid's apex, a position that some researchers believe could mark it as a kind of celestial time capsule. Ancient texts like the pyramid texts describe chambers filled with divine knowledge, possibly containing star maps or records of advanced astronomical observations. If true, this void might hold the key to understanding how the Egyptians calculated planetary movements with such accuracy, or even evidence of a far older, lost science. But here's the twist: similar voids have been detected elsewhere in the pyramid, including a smaller space behind chevron-shaped blocks near the entrance. These aren't random gaps, they're deliberate, engineered spaces hidden in plain sight. Then there's the tantalizing possibility of artifacts. While mainstream archaeology insists the pyramid was looted millennia ago, recent scans suggest otherwise. In 2020, a Japanese team detected metallic anomalies deep within the structure, objects with densities unlike the surrounding limestone. Could these be remnants of tools, ceremonial objects, or even the fabled Iron Throne described in early Arab accounts? The most provocative theory comes from researchers like Christopher Dunn, who argue the pyramid was never a tomb at all, but a power plant harnessing Earth's natural energies. His analysis of the subterranean chambers and shafts reveals features eerily similar to modern acoustic and hydraulic systems. If he's right, the voids might house components of a technology we're only beginning to comprehend. Yet access remains tightly controlled. When a robotic camera was sent up a narrow shaft in the Queen's chamber in 2002, it revealed a small door with copper handles, a door that's never been opened. Subsequent requests to investigate further have been denied, with officials citing preservation concerns, but skeptics wonder if there's more to the story. After all, the last time a major discovery was made inside the pyramid, the so-called air shafts of the king's chamber, their contents were quietly removed and never fully disclosed. The real question isn't just what's inside these chambers, but why their exploration sparks such resistance. Is it fear of damaging a priceless monument, or something deeper, a reluctance to confront evidence that could rewrite history? Until those doors are opened, the pyramid's hidden voids remain a silent challenge, daring us to uncover truths that might forever change our understanding of the ancient world. The lost city of Atlantis isn't just a bedtime story, it's a ghost haunting the edges of history, flickering between myth and tantalizing evidence. Plato first described it in his dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, painting a vivid picture of an advanced island civilization swallowed by the sea around 9,000 years before his time. But here's what's curious, he didn't present it as legend. He framed it as a factual account passed down from Egyptian priests, who claimed Atlantis was a maritime empire with technology and knowledge far beyond its contemporaries. So why, in an age where we've discovered Troy and Pompeii, once thought to be mere fables, does mainstream academia still treat Atlantis as a punchline? Dig beneath the surface, and the resistance starts to make sense. Geological surveys of the Mediterranean and Atlantic have revealed submerged structures that defy simple explanation. Off the coast of Spain, sonar mapping uncovered a series of concentric rings near the Doñana National Park, a formation eerily similar to Plato's description of Atlantis's capital. In the Bahamas, the Bimini Road's perfectly aligned limestone blocks provoke debates about whether they're natural or the remnants of a paved causeway. Yet when independent researchers push for further investigation, funding dries up or permits are denied. The official line, these are just odd rock formations, not worth serious study. But skeptics whisper another possibility, that proving Atlantis existed would force a rewrite of human history so radical, it threatens the foundations of modern archaeology. Then there's the paper trail, or rather, the lack of one. Ancient libraries like Alexandria held texts referencing Atlantis, but these works vanished in flames or were deliberately purged. A medieval map owned by the Ottoman Admiral Piri, Reis, reportedly included Atlantis, but that section was torn away centuries ago. Even modern discoveries face strange roadblocks. In 2009, a British team claimed to have identified Atlantis using satellite imagery in the wetlands of southern Spain, only to have their findings dismissed as overinterpretation. Meanwhile, declassified CIA documents from the Cold War era reveal an odd fascination with Atlantis among intelligence operatives, including psychic remote viewing experiments targeting its supposed coordinates. Why would a myth warrant such attention from spies? The real reason Atlantis remains taboo might lie in what its existence implies. Plato described it as a society that fell due to hubris and corruption, a mirror held up to our own civilization. Worse, if Atlantis was real, its technological prowess, think energy systems beyond our own, would challenge the linear narrative of human progress. Imagine the upheaval if we learned that an ancient culture mastered renewable energy or anti-gravity, only to vanish without a trace. Governments and institutions thrive on control, and nothing destabilizes control like the revelation that our ancestors might have been more advanced, or more flawed than we've been led to believe. Until those underwater ruins are fully excavated or those classified documents see daylight, Atlantis will linger in the shadows, a cautionary tale dismissed as fantasy, yet refusing to be forgotten. The Freemasons don't just build lodges, they've built an entire mythology around their origins, one shrouded in symbols and half-truths. Officially, their history traces back to medieval stonemason guilds, but scratch the surface and the story gets far stranger. Why do their rituals reference figures like Hiram Abiff, the biblical architect of Solomon's Temple, or speak of sacred geometry with reverence usually reserved for religion? Some researchers argue the Masons are the modern custodians of knowledge far older than the Middle Ages secrets passed down from the builders of the pyramids, the architects of Gothic cathedrals, or even survivors of a lost civilization. Take their initiation rites. Candidates undergo symbolic journeys that mirror ancient Egyptian death rituals, complete with blindfolds and mock resurrections. Their tools, the square, compass, and trowel, aren't just carpenters' implements but representations of cosmic order, echoing Pythagorean mathematics and Hermetic philosophy. Even their famed all-seeing eye symbol, later adopted for the US dollar bill, has roots in the Eye of Horus, an Egyptian emblem of divine vision. These aren't random choices, they're fragments of a puzzle suggesting the Masons inherited something far older than their 18th century founding documents admit. Then there's the Rosslyn Chapel connection. This 15th century Scottish chapel, often linked to the Templars and the Masons, is a stone canvas of enigmatic carvings from American maize plants, carved decades before Columbus sailed, to intricate musical scores encoded in its arches. Some theorists believe the chapel's layout mirrors the Temple of Jerusalem, while others see it as a Rosetta Stone for lost knowledge, possibly even the whereabouts of the Templars' fabled treasure. The Masons officially denied direct ties to the Templars, but the parallels are hard to ignore. Both groups prized secrecy, used complex initiation rites, and were accused of heresy by the Church. But the most tantalizing clue lies in their archives. Former Masons like Manly P. Hall claimed the order's inner circle's guard texts detailing advanced ancient sciences, from acoustics that could shatter stone to celestial navigation techniques predating the compass. Hall's book, The Secret Teachings of All Ages, describes a hidden Masonic tradition tracing back to Atlantis, though mainstream lodges dismiss this as fringe speculation. Yet the Vatican's own archives contain 17th century letters warning of Masonic geometric heresies, suggesting even the Church believed they'd preserved dangerous ideas. The real question isn't just what the Masons know, it's why they've kept it hidden. In an age of transparency, their silence speaks volumes. Perhaps some truths aren't lost to time but guarded by those who understand their power. Until a Mason breaks rank or a vault is opened, their origins remain a labyrinth with no clear exit. Buried beneath layers of dirt and dogma, a cache of discoveries threatens to shatter the timeline of human history as we know it. These aren't just anomalies, they're relics that defy everything textbooks teach about our origins. Take the London hammer, a perfectly formed tool encased in 400-million-year-old rock found in Texas in the 1930s. Or the wolf's egg iron cube, a machined metal object pulled from a 20-million-year-old coal seam in Austria. Mainstream science dismisses them as hoaxes or misidentified natural formations, but the pattern is too consistent to ignore. Artifacts keep surfacing in geological strata dating back millions of years, eras when humans shouldn't have existed. So why aren't these objects displayed in museums or studied by universities? The answer may lie in what they represent. If validated, these out-of-place artifacts, often called OOP arts, would force a reckoning with evolutionary theory. Imagine the implications of a shoe print fossilized in shale from the Cambrian period, or advanced circuitry embedded in stone predating the dinosaurs. The scientific establishment operates on consensus, and entire careers are built on the current human origins narrative. Admitting these artifacts are genuine would unravel decades of research funding, academic prestige, and carefully constructed timelines. It's not just about fossils and dating methods, it's about power. Who gets to decide what's considered real history? Then there's the curious case of the Ica stones. Discovered in Peru in the 1960s, these engraved rocks depict humans coexisting with dinosaurs, performing medical surgeries, and using telescopes, scenarios that clash violently with accepted chronology. While some were proven fakes, others exhibit patina and weathering consistent with ancient origin. Even more puzzling are the thousands of similar stones reportedly held in private collections, their existence whispered about but never formally studied. Could they be remnants of a lost civilization's knowledge, or deliberate fabrications meant to confuse? The refusal to investigate them fully suggests fear of what might be confirmed. The suppression isn't always overt. Often, it's the quiet sidelining of inconvenient evidence. Artifacts vanish into storage rooms of universities, labeled misplaced or under study indefinitely. Research proposals get denied for lacking academic merit, a convenient loophole to avoid challenging orthodoxy, even when legitimate scientists like Virginia Steen McIntyre tried to publish findings on human tools dating back 250,000 years, far older than the Clovis culture believed to be the America's first inhabitants. Her work was rejected by journals, her career derailed. The message is clear: some discoveries are too dangerous to acknowledge. But here's the twist: advances in technology are making suppression harder. Ground-penetrating radar and eye analysis are uncovering anomalies faster than they can be dismissed. In 2017, researchers using LiDAR mapping found massive, man-made structures hidden beneath the Amazon rainforest, suggesting urban-scale civilizations thrived there over 10,000 years ago. Similar tech revealed submerged megaliths off Japan's coast, their perfect geometry defying natural explanation. The walls of the academic fortress are cracking, and what's seeping through can't be unlearned. The real question isn't whether these artifacts exist, it's what they're protecting us from. If humans walked the Earth millions of years earlier than believed, or if advanced cultures rose and fell in cycles we've forgotten, it changes more than history books. It forces us to confront the fragility of our own civilization. Maybe that's the secret too terrifying to reveal, that we're not the first to reach for the stars, and we might not be the last to vanish beneath the dust. Marco Polo's travel journals were meant to be a record of his extraordinary journey, but what if the most astonishing parts were deliberately erased? The original manuscript, written in the late 13th century, described his 24 years traversing the Silk Road, encountering empires and innovations that medieval Europe could scarcely comprehend. Yet when his writings were compiled and copied over the centuries, entire sections vanished. Some pages were torn out, others rewritten, and certain passages glossed over with vague language. The question isn't just what was lost, it's why someone felt the need to hide it. Take the curious case of his descriptions of Japan. Polo called it Sipangu, a land of gold-roofed temples and advanced metallurgy. But later editions of his work downplayed these details, reducing them to footnotes. Why? Because his accounts conflicted with European perceptions of Asia as a backward continent. Even more telling are the gaps in his documentation of Chinese innovations. Polo described paper money, coal burning, and even a postal system technologies Europe wouldn't adopt for centuries. But his most detailed notes on these subjects survive only in fragments, hinting at a deliberate effort to soften their impact. Was the church or European nobility censoring knowledge that could undermine their authority? Then there's the mystery of the missing chapter on Tibet. Polo's original journals supposedly contained vivid accounts of sky burials, advanced medicine, and a monastic culture with deep astronomical knowledge. Yet these sections were heavily edited or omitted entirely in later copies. Some researchers believe Polo witnessed traditions that clashed too violently with Christian dogma, like reincarnation rituals or meditation practices inducing trance states. Others speculate he may have encountered remnants of lost technologies, mechanical automata, or architectural techniques that defied European understanding. The Vatican's archives allegedly hold uncensored versions of his writings, but access remains tightly restricted. the most tantalizing clue lies in Polo's own words. In one surviving fragment, he mentions a black stone used for heating in China, clearly referring to coal. But in the same passage, he alludes to another substance, one that burned without flame and could melt iron like wax. This description matches nothing in medieval technology, yet it was scrubbed from later editions. Was it a misunderstood reference to early gunpowder? Or something far more exotic, like a lost metallurgical technique? The answer may lie in the original Venetian manuscripts, which have never been fully translated or released to the public. The real scandal isn't just that Marco Polo's journals were censored, it's that the censorship worked so well. For centuries, Europeans dismissed his most extraordinary claims as exaggerations, only to discover much later that many were true. But what if the wildest parts, the ones that didn't survive the editing process, were the most accurate of all? Until those missing pages resurface, we're left with a haunting possibility that the greatest discoveries of Polo's travels weren't lost to time, but locked away by those who couldn't handle the truth. The Cold War wasn't just a clash of superpowers, it was a shadow war of secrets, where science became a weapon and ethics were often left in the dust. Declassified documents from the era read like pages torn from a sci-fi novel, revealing programs where governments experimented on unwitting citizens, weaponized the weather, and even probed the boundaries of human consciousness. Yet for every file that's seen daylight, countless others remain locked away, their contents known only to a handful of insiders. What truths still lie buried in those classified vaults? Take Project MKUltra, the CIA's infamous mind control initiative. Officially, it aimed to develop brainwashing techniques by dosing subjects with LSD and other psychoactive drugs, often without their knowledge. But leaked files hint at darker layers. One memo describes experiments where victims were subjected to weeks of sensory deprivation, electroshock, and relentless interrogation in an attempt to erase their personalities. Another outlines attempts to create hypnotized assassins programmed to kill on command. While the program was officially shut down in the 1970s, former operatives claim key aspects simply went underground, rebranded under new code names. The most chilling detail: less than 20% of MKUltra's records were ever released. The rest were deliberately destroyed, leaving us to wonder how far the rabbit hole truly went. Then there's the lesser-known Project Stormfury, where the U.S. government tried to weaponize hurricanes. Between 1962 and 1983, scientists seeded storms with silver iodide, attempting to steer their paths or weaken their intensity. Declassified footage shows planes darting into raging cyclones, dumping chemicals into the eye wall. While the project was deemed a failure, conspiracy theorists point to strange anomalies like Hurricane Andrew's sudden intensification in 1992, which some claim was the result of Russian counter-experiments. Even more unsettling are the patents filed during this period, including one for a weather modification method that could redirect storms toward enemy territories. With climate warfare now banned by international treaty, why do so many of these files remain classified? But the Cold War's strangest secrets might lie in the realm of the paranormal. Project Stargate saw the CIA and Pentagon spending millions on remote viewing experiments, training psychics to see distant locations with their minds. Declassified reports describe startling successes, like a viewer sketching a Soviet submarine base with uncanny accuracy. Another document details a psychic locating a downed bomber in Africa after satellites failed. While the program was officially discontinued, rumors persist that elements were absorbed into black-budget operations. The real question isn't whether psychic espionage worked, but why the government invested so heavily in something so far outside mainstream science. Were they chasing fringe ideas, or had they stumbled onto something far more profound? The pattern is clear. Whenever a Cold War experiment is exposed, officials dismiss it as an isolated lapse in judgment. But the sheer scale of these programs suggests something more systematic, a willingness to cross any line in pursuit of an edge. With thousands of documents still classified under national security clauses, we may never know the full extent of what was tested, who was harmed, or what breakthroughs were buried. The greatest secret of the Cold War might be how much of its shadow still stretches into our present. The Knights Templar didn't just disappear after their brutal suppression in the 14th century. They vanished with a legacy of secrets so explosive, their shadows still stretch across history. When King Philip IV of France moved to destroy the Order in 1307, his soldiers stormed Templar strongholds only to find vaults emptied, documents burned, and treasures gone without a trace. The official narrative claims the Knights were wiped out, but rumors persist that their most sacred relics, objects like the Holy Grail, the Ark of the Covenant, or even scrolls containing forbidden knowledge, were smuggled to safety. So where did these artifacts go, and who's been guarding them for the last 700 years? One theory points to Scotland, where surviving Templars allegedly fled after their dissolution. The Rosslyn Chapel, just south of Edinburgh, is riddled with Templar symbolism, from carvings of the iconic twin riders on a single horse to intricate stonework mirroring Solomon's Temple. Beneath its floors, ground-penetrating radar has detected hidden chambers, yet excavations are mysteriously discouraged. Could this be the final resting place of the Grail, or perhaps the lost scrolls of the Templars' banking network, a system so advanced it rivaled modern finance? Even more intriguing are the chapel's carvings of American maize and aloe vera, plants unknown in Europe when it was built. Some speculate these are clues pointing to Templar voyages to the New World long before Columbus, their knowledge of distant lands buried with their treasures. Then there's the Portuguese connection. After the Order's suppression, King Denis of Portugal quietly rebranded the Knights as the Order of Christ, preserving their fleet and influence. Their ships, adorned with the Templar cross, later carried explorers like Vasco da Gama. Here's the twist: many of these voyages weren't just about trade. They were searches. Templar maps reportedly guided Portuguese navigators to remote islands and hidden strongholds, possibly to safeguard relics from European purges. The Tower of Toma, the Order's Portuguese headquarters, still holds encrypted manuscripts hinting at a celestial treasure hidden where the eagle nests. Is this poetic metaphor or a literal coordinate? But the most tantalizing possibility lies in the Templars' ties to ancient traditions. Before their fall, they spent nearly 2 centuries excavating beneath Jerusalem's Temple Mount, where the Ark of the Covenant was last recorded. Some scholars believe they didn't just find gold, they uncovered texts. Not biblical scrolls, but something far older: Sumerian tablets, Egyptian alchemical treatises, or even blueprints for technologies lost to time. This would explain why the Vatican's archives still withhold key Templar trial documents, and why certain families in Europe's aristocracy have quietly funded archaeological digs for centuries. The truth may be simpler and darker. Perhaps the Templars' real treasure wasn't an object but knowledge, heresies that challenged the church, or financial systems that could destabilize kingdoms. After all, the greatest secret isn't always what's hidden, but who benefits from its disappearance. Until those vaults are opened or those maps deciphered, the Templars' legacy remains a puzzle with missing pieces. Someone, somewhere, has gone to great lengths to keep missing. The Michigan relics should have rewritten history books, but instead, they were locked away in museum basements and labeled as fakes. Discovered in the late 19th century by a farmer named James Scotford, these strange objects included clay tablets etched with Hebrew-like script, copper tools, and even lead crosses buried deep in the earth. At first glance, they seem to prove that ancient Near Eastern travelers reached America centuries before Columbus. But within years, archaeologists dismissed them as an elaborate hoax, pointing to crude craftsmanship and Scotford's shady reputation. Yet here's the problem. No one ever explained why some tablets were found under undisturbed tree roots dating back centuries, or why independent digs across Michigan kept turning up similar artifacts. If this was a scam, why did the fraud span decades and involve unrelated discoverers? Then there's the Bat Creek stone, unearthed in a Tennessee burial mound in 1889. This small sandstone slab bears an inscription eerily similar to Paleo-Hebrew, reading, "For Judah," or "For the Judeans." Mainstream scholars initially declared it a forgery, but modern laser analysis revealed mineral deposits in the carvings consistent with centuries of weathering, far older than the excavation itself. Even stranger, the mound where it was found contained 9 skeletons with cranial features atypical of Native American populations, suggesting possible Mediterranean or Middle Eastern ancestry. Yet despite these red flags, the stone was relegated to a footnote in archaeology textbooks, its implications too disruptive to the narrative of an isolated pre-Columbian America. The pattern repeats with the Los Lunas Decalogue stone in New Mexico, a 300-ton boulder carved with the 10 Commandments in ancient Hebrew script. Geologists estimate its inscriptions could be 2,000 years old, yet academia insists it's a 19th century fake. Why? Because accepting it as genuine would mean admitting that Semitic explorers not only reached America but left lasting religious monuments, a claim that upends colonial-era assumptions about indigenous cultures. Similar resistance met the Newark Holy Stones, a set of artifacts found in Ohio bearing Hebrew and Pseudo-Egyptian markings. When chemist Scott Wolter applied forensic testing, he found patina layers impossible to replicate with modern tools. But rather than sparking curiosity, his findings were met with silence from institutional archaeologists. What's really at stake here isn't just the authenticity of a few disputed objects, it's the gatekeeping of history itself. For centuries, Western academia has clung to the dogma that advanced civilizations couldn't have crossed oceans before European ships. Yet these artifacts echo Native American oral traditions of bearded strangers arriving from the east, like the Aztec god Quetzalcoatl or the Cherokees' moon-eyed people. Even DNA studies reveal traces of European and Middle Eastern ancestry in some indigenous groups, dating back millennia. The evidence is a mosaic, scattered but persistent, waiting for someone to piece it together without fear of professional backlash. Perhaps the most telling detail is where many of these artifacts end up, private collections or locked storage, away from public scrutiny. The Michigan relics were lost for decades before resurfacing in a university basement. The Bat Creek stone vanished from the Smithsonian's display in the 1970s, only to reappear briefly before being tucked away again. It's as if the establishment isn't just skeptical, it's afraid of what might happen if these objects are studied openly. After all, rewriting history isn't just about adding new chapters, it's about questioning who held the pen all along. Until these relics get the unbiased analysis they deserve, we're left with a haunting possibility that the story of ancient America is far richer and far stranger than we've been taught to believe. The ancient Sanskrit epics of India don't just tell stories, they read like manuals for a civilization that harnessed powers we've only begun to grasp. The Mahabharata and Ramayana describe flying chariots called Vimanas, powered by mercury vortex engines and capable of interstellar travel. They speak of weapons like the Brahmastra, a projectile so devastating it could level cities and poison the land for generations. For centuries, these accounts were dismissed as mythology, but a growing body of evidence suggests they might be echoes of a forgotten technological golden age. Take the Vimana texts preserved in libraries like the Rajasthan Oriental Research Institute. These ancient manuscripts contain intricate schematics for aircraft, complete with descriptions of propulsion systems, electrical circuits, and even pilot safety protocols. One passage details a mercury-based engine that, when activated, would create a roaring flame and lift the craft vertically, a description uncannily similar to modern VTOL vertical takeoff and landing technology. Skeptics argue these are just poetic metaphors, but in 1991, a team of Indian scientists reconstructed a small-scale model based on the texts. Their prototype reportedly generated enough lift to hover briefly, though the results were never formally published. Why the secrecy? Some speculate the findings challenged conventional aerospace history too radically. Then there's the case of the Iron Pillar of Delhi. Standing over 23 feet tall and weighing more than 6 tons, this 1,600-year-old monument has baffled metallurgists for decades. Despite exposure to monsoons and pollution, it hasn't rusted, a feat modern science can't fully replicate. Analysis reveals its surface is coated with a thin layer of a unique iron compound, something akin to a passive protective film. Ancient Indian texts refer to similar rust-proof alloys used in Vimana construction, suggesting the pillar might be a surviving fragment of a larger technological tradition. Even more intriguing are temple carvings in places like Hampi, depicting what appear to be pilots inside cockpit-like structures, surrounded by dials and levers. Are these artistic flights of fancy, or blueprints from a time when humanity's reach extended beyond the clouds? The most controversial claims surround the so-called ancient nuclear warfare described in the Mahabharata. One passage recounts a weapon that burned brighter than 1,000 suns, leaving survivors with hair and nails falling out, symptoms eerily reminiscent of radiation poisoning. In the 1970s, archaeologist David Davenport claimed to have found evidence of vitrified stone in the ancient city of Mohenjo-Daro, where walls appear to have melted under extreme heat. Mainstream scholars attribute this to conventional fires, but independent researchers point to the lack of charred remains and the precise, localized nature of the damage. Could this be the scar of a cataclysmic event lost to history? The suppression narrative gains traction when you examine modern barriers to research. In 2003, a team from India's Defense Research and Development Organization petitioned to study Vimana texts in depth, only to have their project quietly shelved. Ancient Sanskrit scholars report unexplained difficulties accessing key manuscripts, with some documents mysteriously reclassified or lost from archives. Even the Indian government's recent push to explore traditional sciences has been met with ridicule from Western institutions, as if the mere idea of non-European technological advancement threatens the established order. What if these technologies weren't just real, but deliberately erased from history? The Vedic civilization spanned millennia, with universities like Nalanda storing knowledge that made medieval Europe's libraries seem primitive by comparison. When invaders burned these centers, they didn't just destroy books, they may have incinerated the last traces of a science we're still struggling to rediscover. The real question isn't whether ancient India had flying machines or energy weapons, but why we're so resistant to the possibility that our ancestors might have been more than primitive farmers. Until those sealed manuscripts are opened and those temple carvings studied without prejudice, we're left with fragments of a puzzle, one that could rewrite not just history but humanity's potential. The cave paintings of Val Camonica in Italy tell a story that doesn't fit neatly into history books. Etched into the rocks over 8,000 years ago, these figures tower above human forms, their elongated bodies and bulbous heads eerily reminiscent of modern depictions of extraterrestrials. Nearby, in France's Pech Merle caves, similar figures float above the ground, surrounded by strange, disc-shaped objects. Indigenous tribes from Australia to the Americas have oral traditions of sky people who descended with advanced knowledge, while the Dogon tribe of Mali accurately described Sirius B, a star invisible to the naked eye centuries before telescopes confirmed its existence. These aren't isolated coincidences, they're fragments of a global tapestry hinting at something far more profound than mythology. Mainstream archaeology dismisses these accounts as imaginative storytelling or symbolic rituals, but the uniformity of these stories across unconnected cultures raises uncomfortable questions. The ancient Sumerians carved cylinder seals showing beings they called the Anunnaki, who supposedly came from the heavens to bestow civilization. The Hindu Vedas describe gods piloting flying machines called vimanas, complete with technical details about propulsion and weaponry. Even the biblical prophet Ezekiel's vision of a wheel within a wheel sounds less like divine revelation and more like an eyewitness account of a mechanical craft. When confronted with these parallels, academics often retreat behind the shield of convergent imagination, the idea that similar myths sprang up independently. But when the same motifs descending gods, celestial vehicles, and advanced knowledge appear in cultures separated by oceans and millennia, the explanation starts to feel flimsy. The resistance runs deeper than scholarly skepticism. In 1966, astronomer Carl Sagan co-authored a study suggesting that ancient astronaut theories deserved serious consideration, only to face fierce backlash from peers who accused him of lending credibility to pseudoscience. Decades later, the discovery of the Nazca Line's massive geoglyphs in Peru, only fully visible from the air, reignited debates about ancient aerial technology. When researchers pointed out that some lines align with constellations as they appeared over 10,000 years ago, the response wasn't curiosity but ridicule. The irony is palpable. A scientific community that prides itself on questioning assumptions becomes dogmatic when those assumptions are turned upside down. Perhaps the real issue isn't evidence but paradigm shifts. Accepting that extraterrestrials might have influenced human history undermines foundational narratives about progress and human exceptionalism. It suggests that our greatest achievements, agriculture, architecture, astronomy, might not be solely ours. Governments have their own reasons for suppression. Declassified CIA files reveal Cold War-era interest in ancient astronaut lore, with operatives investigating whether these myths held clues to lost technologies. Meanwhile, private institutions quietly hoard artifacts that defy explanation, like the thousands of unexplained metallic spheres found in South African mines, dated to over 2 billion years old and etched with precise geometric patterns. The truth may lie in the gaps between disciplines. Astronomers, archaeologists, and anthropologists rarely collaborate on these questions, leaving each piece of the puzzle isolated. Until academia bridges these divides, the cave paintings and star maps will keep whispering a secret too radical to say aloud, that we've never been alone, and the stars have always been closer than we dared to believe. The greatest trick history ever played wasn't hiding the truth. It was convincing us we already know it. After centuries of discoveries, we're left staring at a puzzle where half the pieces are missing, locked away in vaults, buried beneath deserts, or deliberately erased from the record. These aren't just gaps in our knowledge, they're black holes swallowing civilizations, technologies, and entire chapters of human ingenuity. The Vatican's sealed archives, the uncharted chambers beneath the Sphinx, the classified notebooks of visionaries like Tesla, they whisper a haunting possibility that history, as we've been taught, is a carefully edited highlight reel. Consider the weight of what's at stake. If just one of these suppressed truths came to light, proof of pre-Columbian transoceanic contact, evidence of ancient energy systems, or records of a forgotten golden age, it wouldn't just rewrite textbooks. It would unravel the foundation of power, religion, and identity that societies are built upon. No wonder institutions guard these secrets so fiercely. Knowledge isn't just power, it's the ultimate destabilizer, yet the cracks are widening. Satellite imaging reveals lost cities beneath jungle canopies. Citizen archaeologists uncover artifacts that defy timelines. Declassified documents hint at experiments beyond our wildest imagination. The truth has a way of seeping through, no matter how tightly the lid is screwed down. And that's where you come in. Every shared theory, every debated clue, every fresh pair of eyes on an ancient riddle brings us closer to peeling back the layers. So what's still out there? A library buried beneath the sands of Egypt, a device hidden in plain sight, waiting for the right mind to reactivate it, or perhaps something simpler, the courage to question what we've been told. The real secret might not be locked in a vault, it could be tucked away in plain sight, disguised as myth or hearsay, counting on our skepticism to keep it safe. The hunt isn't over, it's just beginning. Drop your wildest theories below. What history-changing discovery do you think is still under wraps? And if you're hungry for more deep dives into the shadows of our past, hit that subscribe button. The next revelation might be just one click